Can I take it that the regulations regarding length of speech don't apply to our comments as is usual? In making the State of the City report, I'd like to refer first to the three priorities that I raised last year. One was the need to improve our skills and particularly the number of people who are that in an unpleasantly named group, the NEETs, not in education, employment and training. Secondly, the issue around improving the housing offer of the city, and thirdly, around improvements to the city centre. And what I'll first do is do an update on those three areas before I go on to some of the new challenges that face us. Central to the need for economic development, recovery, growth and job creation is the need to tackle the skills shortages we have, notwithstanding the unemployment we have. Currently, 1 in every 5 vacancies in this region is hard to fill. Department for Work and Pensions seem to be setting the agenda, policy and commissioning contracts without sufficient need to local needs. I believe that we, the City Council, are best placed to understand the needs in our city. Of the NEETs and raising the age of participation, increasing the number of apprenticeships, all these priorities are areas in which we are delivering success. The most recent figures for Wolverhampton show that our NEET figures are 6.8% compared to the national average of 11.3%. The 2011-12 data highlights that for 16 to 18-year-old Wolverhampton residents, over 200 extra young people started an apprenticeship. Starts for 19 to 24-year-olds has grown by roughly 15% over the same period, equivalent to a further 90 apprenticeships. The City Council's Our Finding from Wolverhampton online procurement portal has over 4,000 businesses now registered on its site. Working with the Chamber, the University provides a single point of contact for start-up and existing businesses. I believe that Wolverhampton has fulfilled our promise that it would be open for business. 384 companies were formed between July and September 2012, more than any other quarter on record for the city. There's also a record number of net company growth. During the third quarter, the company register increased by 163, more than any third quarter in the history of the city. We are, as members are aware, working hard on our city deal bid, which focuses on sites and skills. Indeed, I was at the House of Commons earlier today talking to Black Country MPs about what we are doing with the Black Country city deal. A good example of strong cooperation between the 4 boroughs and indeed some of our other neighbours. We are also working very closely with a number of other medium-sized cities to create a key cities group which will lobby on behalf of those medium-sized cities who may potentially be squeezed between the lobbying efforts of the core cities and lobbying efforts of the county council's network. That is an all-party group. In fact, it's 4 parties. It includes Brighton, which is, as most people know, a green city. Green as in Green Party rather than green as in green colour. We've already had significant positive impact from the work that we've done with our neighbours in Staffordshire around the I-54. We've had 2 national awards this year, one from the Local Government Information Unit and most recently from the Municipal Journal, where we received the Community Investors Award. We're continuing to seek to bring new investors to the Black Country Enterprise Zone to join those successful companies Eurofin, Moog and JLR who are already there. And the good news in the last few weeks is that JLR are looking already to expand from an initial plan of some 800 jobs to 1,400 with an extension to the site. Turning to housing. Our housing strategy prioritises the delivery of new housing stock. The most up-to-date housing completion we have for 2011-12 shows that we had 743 housing completions. After taking into account demolitions, this is the highest annual addition to the city's housing stock for more than 10 years. Planning permission has been granted for over 4,300 homes, and of which some 300 are currently under construction. I think that shows that there is some real progress being made in the area of housing, and I'm particularly delighted that the decision this year to support the development in Ettingshaw of over 100 homes includes 26 council properties, the first for some 30 years in the city, and desperately needed they are too. In the city centre, we must recognise the need to improve our public realm and attract investment. We are making a substantial investment now this year in the public realm, investment which we believe will be repaid to us many times over by the potential increase in the business rates which will result from the things that we are doing. We are also pressing very strongly for further work on the Wolverhampton Interchange project to improve the gateway to the city centre. The next phase of works will concentrate on the commercial gateway, seeing the development of offices, hotel and retail, along with the new railway station and the tram link, which we believe are absolutely crucial. We are also continuing to work to see the new developments at Tesco's and Sainsbury's get back on site, and we hope to have some news of further new developments coming in the next few months. Our approach can also be seen to be successful in our operation of the Southside development. 21 businesses have had a share of the council's £400,000 grant for this area. Our focus for the future will be broadening the offer of the city centre as well as building on successes in other parts of the city. Last year I also made reference to underpinning priorities of equalities and sustainability. I believe we've made good progress in the last 12 months, embedding equalities due in no small part to the work of our colleagues on scrutiny who have brought forward several reports around this subject. I believe sustainability, we still need more to do, but that is on our agenda. And these priorities remain, and we must not lose our focus. But I want to turn to some new and emerging challenges facing the city. The first is that this year we welcome back to the local government family public health. Something that we have always argued for and believe that we can deliver a public health agenda as good as anywhere else with strong local input from the council and with the support of Public Health England and with support of the government. We need to embed health and well-being outcomes across every directorate of this city council. Addressing the wider determinants of health has been identified as a key priority for our Health and Wellbeing Board. This board, established under the new legislation, brings together key leaders from the health and care system to work together to improve the health and well-being of their local population. Part of this work involves working with our local communities to understand what assets there are in the community and how we can set these alongside the needs that need to be identified. But our priority must be to tackle the health inequalities. From west to east of this city is a distance of perhaps 7.5 miles. For every mile of that, male life expectancy decreases by 1 year. In the east of the city, male life expectancy is 7.5 years lower than in the west of the city. And we must make a commitment to tackle the lifestyles and behaviour which contributes to this, and that again must be a new priority for the city. I'll turn to the second emerging challenge of welfare reform. Our research shows that welfare reform, while much needed, will actually take £35 million out of our economy over the next 3 years. Some of the changes are clearly ill thought through and will have a severe impact on our family. We've debated and discussed bedroom tax and the changes to council tax. but we know that these are going to be have a major impact on families in our city. We've taken steps to help mitigate this. We've worked with our partners, including Wolverhampton Homes, the Citizens Advice Bureau and Wolverhampton Credit Union, to provide advice to our citizens affected by welfare reform. We've set up a welfare reform board to oversee our response and ensure that we've got a joined-up approach across the city. We've had a helpline set up which is receiving approximately 1,000 calls a month since its launch. We've done things like energy switching, which can help families with their energy bills. We've also focused on bringing in an energy switching scheme, which also helps those people on prepayment meters who miss out on many of the better deals. In April of this year, the City Council introduced a living wage to help our most poorly paid workers on the front line of the council. We undertook this measure because we believe it is the right thing to do, and we are also encouraging our contractors and suppliers to give their lowly paid workers that living wage as well. We think it's important because not only does this reduce benefit dependency, it also means that those people, by and large, who live in the city will have money in their pockets that they can spend in local businesses. The next new challenge refers to children and young people. The impact of welfare reform is likely to be most dramatic on families, and that will have an impact on our looked after children budget. Already 10% of our non-schools budget is actually spent on looked after children. The numbers of children in care has risen dramatically, and it is not an area that we can cut easily or lightly. But there are priorities for reducing that, and one of those priorities is that outcomes for looked after children are not great. Children do better, they do not come into care. We clearly have to look after our children and ensure that they are properly protected, but we must also ensure that they have better outcomes. And that's why we welcome the government's Troubled Families Initiative, Families in Focus as we called it here. But the Troubled Families grant, sadly, is only 20% of the grant we have lost through cuts in the early intervention grant this year alone. Truly, this government giveth with one hand and taketh away with the other five. Our involvement in children must not, however, be limited to child protection. We also have clear role in schools improvement. Ofsted expect the Council to do work around schools improvement. We believe we have very limited powers to do that, but we are committed to bringing forward proposals to ensure that the Council is seen to be acting to ensure that there are improvements in the school improvement, and that we actually face this challenge at a time of massive cutbacks. Now, this speech is the State of the City speech. It's not the State of the Council. However, I cannot fail to comment on the serious impact of the cuts on our city. We have had a disproportionate impact from government cuts compared with wealthier rural areas. Economically disadvantaged areas right across the country have found the same problems. And these challenges posed by this new normality are wide, and they are not going to go away quickly. Our response to this challenge must be radical and it must be firm. Since December 2010, we have made over £60 million of savings, restructured our services, deleted 600 posts, overseen a 3-year wage freeze for staff who have made a major contribution through that to the continuing ability to deliver services, and they will only receive a below inflation rise in 2013. This is tough action, but it's not enough. We have to return to fundamentals. Central to what we do is our relationship with our citizens, and this is now where we need to focus. And we are already reconfiguring our budget consultation approach for 2013 to ensure that there is a dialogue with our communities around what is important to them and ensure that we can enable their priorities to shape budget saving proposals. The current government speaks often of localism. All too often, however, they mean devolving the savings and devolving responsibility without any autonomy to make real local decisions. In the process of re-examining our relationship with the citizens, I advocate a reimagined localism that is real and meaningful, fair in tough times, but not compounding or increasing disadvantage, as so many of the current policies appear to do. Council is developing a policy framework to respond to the Localism Act, and this will include the community right to challenge and enable communities to bid to deliver council services. We are responding to the Social Value Act through specific provisions in the Procurement Code, ensuring that the Council considers social value as part of its major tendering opportunities. PricewaterhouseCoopers have said there is a new normal in local government, and that normal is continued and ongoing austerity. We expect a further £59 to £65 million worth of cuts to be delivered over the next 5 years, facing up to increasing service user demand, some of which we have no control over. I've mentioned looked after children, but the rapid demographic changes at both ends of the age range are going to put increasing pressures on this council and its services. We also face rising expectations from the citizens who use our services, and rightly so. And we also face the added complexity of ill thought through government intervention. And I have to say that isn't a party political point. If you talk to any council right across the country, they will be saying exactly the same thing, whatever party they're coming through, or indeed from. We need to continue to look at how we develop our relationship with citizens, how we communicate with them, and how we work with them to create opportunity for all. The only way to maintain public services in the face of long-term cuts is to design them more closely to the needs of our citizens and our communities. In conclusion, austerity is here to stay. Service delivery has to change, but this must be underpinned by a social justice agenda. And we must achieve this by embracing a meaningful and genuine localism. By being in tune with our citizens, not only can we be the vehicle to build opportunity, we can also strengthen the resilience of our communities and demonstrate our community's leadership and relevance in the service we give to the communities who put us here.
Thank you, Leader. That was the City Address 2013. It is the intention that responses to the Leader's report, which I hope will be brief, will be delivered by the Leader of the two opposition parties. I therefore call first on Councillor Neville Patton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'll just say that I listened to Councillor Lawrence with great interest, because we do recognise the fact that he has a problem, a very big problem, to manage the council with the resources we have and the resources we haven't got anymore. We do recognise that. But the fact of the matter is, he did make a bit of a party political speech, but the fact is that even his party now are saying that if they come back into government, they will not change any of the cuts or austerity measures what are being put through at the moment. So this is something we've all got to work with and live along with, because let's face it, that with austerity, it is teaching us once again to live within our means. And when the end of this comes along and we have learnt these lessons, it can only help to make us a better city, a better country, in fact, with the government, to show that we recognise the fact where the waste was in the past, and we shall not go back to it again. And we shall be able to live within our means with a good life for our citizens for many, many years. Can I just go on, Mr. Mayor, to say that Councillor Lawrence spoke about the growth in Wolverhampton of business. Business is growing, we're told it's growing. But unemployment is still rising. I mean, that's one thing I cannot quite understand. We've still got one of the highest rates of unemployment in the West Midlands as of June 2013. Now, if business is growing, that means there's jobs being created. Why are we not getting these jobs in Wolverhampton? And this boils down to the fact, as Councillor Lawrence mentioned, about skills. Are we doing enough to teach skills to our young people? Are we getting the businesses to go into the firms, the factories, what have you, to talk to them, to get them as apprentices as they come off out of school? It should be like a conveyor belt. They get there to the end of the school, the factories have been in there talking to them, the next step is into the factory, onto the conveyor belt, into apprenticeships, and get them into work. If business is growing, this is what can happen. And I'm also pleased to see that Councillor Lawrence does mention that some of the things going on across the West Midlands area is all party group, all working together to bring this about. Even JLR I-54, as he mentioned, what a boost to our area. It really is. And as much that JLR are now recognising the fact that the West Midlands, Wolverhampton and around here is the place to be. Otherwise, why is it they're not going abroad this time to promote their cars, what have you? They're stopping here in the Midlands to promote them because they know this is the place to be in the future. And with JLR and other businesses what will come along, we will show them, because the Black Country people have shown throughout history that we are the workshop of Britain round here, and we still can be. Can I just move on as well? I mean, we've had a lot of problems with Tesco and Sainsbury's. What a long running sort of problem that has been with one thing or another. But I'm pleased to see now they are starting to get their act together, to move, to start the building, which will create jobs and make Wolverhampton an attractive place for people to come into, instead of going out to the other places. One of the mistakes we made in this town, I suppose, was we created Bentley Bridge, and what happened? It still belongs to us, but our businesses in Wolverhampton have moved over to Bentley Bridge and left us with empty shops. We've got to address that situation, and I think that these days now, with new sort of feelings inside the council, with our officers and new officers who have come along, I think that we've started to get the sort of feel-good factor, the kick we need to get things moving, and I really hope that it does happen. Mr. Mayor, why is it that we all support the living wage? Yes, we do, because we need, as Roger says, to see people with money in their pocket so they can spend it in the city, which will make our businesses improving. CYP, yeah, we're pleased to see that that support comes from the government as well as what we are. We're doing here, working very hard in Wolverhampton to look after our young children. Them our future, and we need to do that. And he talked about consultation. Yes, we need to really talk to our people, because unless we tell them what's going on, they're not interested. They think the council, yeah, they'll get on with what they want to do. But if we can talk to them, get them involved in what we're doing. And I was pleased to see today that I went into a little meeting supporting to bring people into the council, to get them interested as councillors or working in the community. It's all part of it and doing it. We're talking to businesses, and I think that's really good. And I think that's about it, because on the other hand, as I said to these people this afternoon, that 80% of the business we do in the council, we all support for the good of our city. There's only about 10% where we disagree with the way some things get done because of different policies. But all in all, we recognise the fact we do have a problem in Wolverhampton. We need to get more housing. We need to get the city centre up and running. We need to get more apprenticeships. And I think we're starting to get that way. And with all party support, I'm sure we can all work together to try and achieve that. And while the controlling group are very serious in what they want to do, and they involve us as well, we shall work with them to improve our city. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Thatton, for your contribution. Can I call on Councillor Green to respond as well? Firstly, can I congratulate Councillor Gwyneth on his election as the new leader of the... I think you didn't have to use the alternative vote, Malcolm, when you had the election. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I was the one that got out the phone box first. Right. First of all, can I welcome Councillor Lawrence's speech on the state of the city, and also the comments from Councillor Patton, because a lot of what was said was absolutely right. I certainly welcome the interchange and the ongoing work to try and bring the interchange to Wolverhampton, and hopefully we'll move forward. I do have some concerns when it was mentioned about the gateway to the city. People have raised in the past several things, like when you come in on the railway, for argument's sake, that last mile into Wolverhampton in certain places is actually appalling. It would even look better if we could get some advertising hoardings up, advertising what's good in Wolverhampton along that line in certain places. It would look far better than what we have now. Having said that, I fully agree with a lot of the things that Councillor Lawrence and everybody has said on the welfare side of things. Certainly the reforms, as I see it, on certain issues are not well thought out by the government, and it just makes you wonder on certain things of what their thinking actually is, because it doesn't seem to fit the agenda of what the actual people want out of life. I agree with some of the cuts to us are certainly not fair. When you look at various things, at the same stage over the years, we have had enough cuts. Now we're looking for another 60 million over 5 years. That has given us a lot of grief. And a lot of grief really that we shouldn't be happening, because when we were in control a few years ago, we saved over 40 million in the space of 2 to 3 years. Now, if you put the two together, that's over 100 million over that period of time. A massive amount of money to try and save. But it doesn't end there, because there has to be ways and means to sort this out. And one of the things I believe is that this council, along with others, should perhaps go, to an extent, back to basics in a big way. By that I don't mean, no, you're not going to empty the bins. Yes, you are going to empty the bins, because those are the things the people want, and they want them on a regular basis. So you go back. Well, I know we already do it, don't get me wrong, but that's what people want. I would also add that I don't actually agree with some of the cuts that have been made by the government, and I'm the first to admit it. I think there are ways and means that this government could have gone down other lines to make savings, which wouldn't have affected local government. Finally, I would also add that I do have some concerns, certainly about the city centre. Yes, we now have Tim Johnson in place, who is coming forward, and welcome to Tim, now he's joined us. We have a lot of high hopes and expectations from you, Tim, and I'm sure you're going to deliver for us. But I say we do have concerns that, and I think Neville raised one issue of Bentley Bridge. I actually think Bentley Bridge is good for Wolverhampton at the moment, in one respect, because A, it's what the people want. B, it's got the car parking right next door to it. It's got the range of shops now that are virtually what people want on there. And if you notice, that car park is always full. So it's got to be what people want. So we have to change our ways to bring that forward in our city centre. Yes, we've got great plans. Hopefully some of those plans will come to fruition shortly. I think my final remark would have to be, let's make Wolverhampton the place to be, the city to be, the best city in the country. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bruni, for that. Thank you for your contribution. Can I call on the leader to respond to the issues raised, please? if you've achieved
Yeah, I'd like to thank both Neville and Malcolm for their comments and make 2 or 3 comments in response to that. The first is that the answer to the problems we face is to maximise growth, both locally and nationally. And I'm not entirely sure that despite the promises of enabling us to tackle those barriers to growth, the government has actually understood that what we can do at a local level will deliver their agenda. And when I talk of government, I don't just mean the political government, I also mean the civil servants in Whitehall, who seem to think their we know best attitude, which has run through governments for more than 40 years in my experience, is one of the problems that we face. And until we actually tackle that problem of civil service not understanding that we can be trusted to make decisions and we can be trusted to manage money effectively, we will make the progress that we need to make. We need to break down some of those empires in Whitehall and get them to hand us greater responsibility, both as a council and as a collective of councils, either at the Black Country or at the West Midlands level. And that's something we need to do. Neville rightly says unemployment remains stubbornly high. I suspect the loss of 700 jobs at the City Council hasn't actually helped the unemployment problem in the city. And I have identified what we are doing at the moment to tackle the skills issue. But I have to say, again, when we talk to DWP, when we talk to BIS and the other government departments, they will not give the flexibilities we think our colleges and our other institutions need to try and help people get retrained, particularly in the over 25 area. I think we're making some progress in the 18 to 25, but for the over 25s there seems to be a stubbornness and a reluctance of government to offer us the flexibility we need to provide those sorts of skills. Not the skills that we think people should have, but the skills that our businesses are telling us they need. And again, that point was made very strongly this morning in the meeting of Members of Parliament by Stuart Toe, the chair of our local enterprise partnership, who is a great friend not just to our city, but to the Black Country as a whole. And I want to talk a little bit about waste and what went on before, because I challenge the view that all the expenditure we've managed to lose was wasteful expenditure. We have made amazing strides in taking advantage of changed financial circumstances, for example, to reschedule our debt, which has had a magnificent impact on the finances of this council and taken millions of pounds out of our expenditure without impacting on services. There are other areas where we've run through efficiencies, which again have by and large delivered the same services at lower cost, but they have also had a cost themselves. And we have looked to improve our ICT practices and other areas, and looked at our asset management to try and ensure that we don't spend money on buildings we don't need, and we make sure we have the most efficient ICT arrangements, and everyone in the council knows that we are now moving towards the close, I hope, of that long-standing issue. So we've done extremely well in making sure that the wheels haven't come off. I also make the point that our workforce have made huge sacrifices. Effectively, they've taken a 10% real cut over the last 3 years. And they have made sacrifices as well as the losses in jobs. They're actually now doing more effectively for less. And I'm very grateful and thankful to the workforce for the way that they have responded to these challenges. But we have to challenge these barriers to growth, and we have to say that the cuts we have made are as nothing compared with the cuts to come. There is very, very little surplus in this council anymore. Cuts are going to impact on our ability to deliver services. There can be no doubt about that, and that is something we all need to recognise. And I've mentioned again, the demographic demands are changing. Over the last 10 years, we've seen a massive change in the demographics of the city. Many, many more children coming into school, many, many more older people, and we need to be able to respond to those challenges and give people the sorts of help that they need to stay fit, healthy and skilled in our city. And I touch all of those points. And I want to pay tribute again to the senior management of this council, to the staff, and also to all the councillors of the authority for doing their best to make sure that the wheels don't come off. But believe me, they are beginning to shake. And to Malcolm, I would say congratulations, Malcolm. You are the only leader I've known who's managed to increase the size of his group by 50% just by being elected. But I would just say one word of warning to you, Malcolm. Back to basics is not a term that I think politicians should ever use. We've been caught out too long in the past. We are in an extremely difficult set of circumstances, but as Neville said, this city has a huge history, both in terms of skills, in terms of innovation, in terms of imagination, in terms of entrepreneurship. Those skills are still there. They haven't disappeared out of the city. They are still there. We need to harness the skills of our community to try and ensure that in these difficult times we still manage to deliver the best for our community and the best for the people who put us here.